Hello and welcome back to Perfect Spiral Capital. My name is Luke Tatum. I'm an authorized infinite banking concept practitioner. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the 2024 Infinite Banking Think Tank that took place in Nevada this year. I just returned home from that recently. It was a wonderful experience, and they really did an excellent job, the Nelson Nash Institute did, of elevating the practitioner think tank experience to an even higher level than it's been in the past. I took about 40 pages of notes throughout the conference on my remarkable tablet, but I want to share with you just some of the key highlights from my experience, and I hope it'll inspire you. If you're someone who isn't utilizing the infinite banking concept in your life at this time, then maybe this is a video you might like to watch to see the kinds of things that the infinite banking practitioners are up to, the kinds of things we discuss. If you're a client, maybe you're just into this stuff and you'd like to learn more about the inner workings. Now, if you're an agent and you work in the industry but have never pulled the trigger in becoming a practitioner, joining the Nelson Nash Institute on its mission to build the 10%, in other words, to get at least 10% of the United States and Canada population to practice the infinite banking concept, in other words, the tipping point, then maybe this is a video that would benefit you too, because it is truly the most valuable event I go to for my business every year. Okay, so takeaway number one, there's a renewed focus on the Nelson Nash Institute YouTube channel. I have a playlist here on the Perfect Spiral Capital channel for some of my favorite videos that I'll continue to add to and expand. But you can also just go subscribe to the Nelson Nash Institute here on YouTube. I'll put a link to that in the description box. And there's really, really excellent content coming from the Institute. It's also great because a lot of it is Nelson Nash himself. There's a lot of wonderful video content of him, so in his own words, telling what the IBC is all about. And that's great. It's wonderful stuff. So definitely subscribe to that. Big takeaway number two, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but Carlos Lara of the NNI has a new book. And so this book right here, The Perfect Investment, from what I understand, this is not available online yet. They actually cracked open the first case of books for practitioners to get first access to. Now, I just got home. As of recording this, I haven't read it yet, but I will. And I'm really excited for that because Carlos has a wonderful way of framing up the necessity, the need for IBC, and as he's done in his other books already. But I can't wait to see what new things he's bringing in this book. Big takeaway number three for me, and this was really a theme for the entire conference this year, was that IBC is an abundance mindset. And really, truly, commercial banking, the traditional way that we're conditioned to interact in the financial world, that is a scarcity mindset. It might not seem that way at first, but you think, okay, I need to buy something, a car. Okay, I'll go ask. I'll go ask for permission, for this loan. And then you're paying the bulk of the interest up front on the loan. And it's scrimping around and trying to make the most of a limited situation, limited access to capital. What about my credit score? It's a constrained view of the world, and it keeps you kind of in the pocket of the big banks. So that was an eye opener for me. I mean, yes, I know that, but I've also not really thought about it before in those terms. And IBC, it's a continually expanding access to capital that you don't have to ask permission for. It's a complete night and day difference. So that was a big thing for me. Okay, next key takeaway. Mark Benson, another practitioner, gave an excellent talk where he highlighted the difference in the way that a bank looks at their activity versus how you look at their activity. What do I mean by that? So let's pretend you're saving money at 1%. You have a 1% on your savings account. That's your interest rate if you leave the money parked there. Well, if the bank is charging you 4% on a loan, I won't get into all the details on how the banking system works here, definitely check out my book if that's something you're interested in, because most of the money is made out of thin air, and that's just a fact. But from their point of view, the bank's point of view, they're making 300% on that deal, right? Because you're getting 1%, but they're receiving 4%. That's not great for you, right? And it even gets worse than that. If you think about, well, what if you get a tenth of a percent? That's similar to what we would earn on our savings account at the bank. And well, what if they're lending money at 4%? Well, that's 3,900% return for the bank. Yikes. Big takeaway. Good stuff. One of our sponsors for this year's event came on and talked about the idea of a separate account, a separate bank account where all of your income flows into, and then distributing from that point into everything else. So, like a savings account that you can just deposit into, and then you move money from there into a checking account for, say, that month. You would just make a big transfer to live off of for the month, but that way you have this pool of expanding capital and using that pool to fund your IBC policies. Kind of an interesting concept. I'm not doing it quite the justice it deserves here, but Lauren and I have more or less done that for a long time. We put money into savings, we funnel income into savings, we move what we need in the relatively immediate future into a checking account to deploy for those purposes, but then everything else gets funneled into our IBC policies. Why? Because that is the best warehouse for your wealth, as Nelson Nash would say. It's the most friendly savings environment that you can have, so we save money there. Another thing that I haven't spoken about on the channel before, but it's critically important, and especially if any of you watching are agents, this is a big deal. We're life insurance agents. That means we're selling a death benefit if someone passes away, when someone passes away, right? There's an insured person. That's the whole thing. That's the basic product, is that there is a pool of cash available on a contractual basis when someone passes away. Yes, whole life has all these other benefits. Yes, we talk a lot about cash flow management, the infinite banking concept, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it is life insurance. And that means that there's a death benefit. And so, something that I've always promised my clients is that when someone passes away, you have a policy on several people. When one of those people passes away, barring a disaster, I'll be there. I'm going to get on a plane, get in the car, and be there with the check at the funeral and make sure that your beneficiaries are taken care of, because that's the whole point. Yes, we need to manage our cash flows. Yes, all the other things are important, but that's the most important thing. And so we got to hear stories this year from some very, very experienced practitioners and agents who have delivered a lot of death benefit claims, a lot of death benefit checks. Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. I won't share their stories. That's to some extent in confidence, but we heard about 13-year-old kids passing away. We heard about, the pillar of a long-standing family of farmers passing away. We heard some powerful stories, and that's just what it is. You, as an agent, need to be making that kind of promise and commitment. I haven't, thankfully, had any of my clients pass away yet, but it's going to happen someday, because everyone passes away and we don't know when. That's just the kind of peace of mind that we need to deliver. It's not like auto insurance, it's not like homeowners insurance in the same way. Yes, losing a house or a car is a big deal. Yes, you want to make sure those things are taken care of. But a death benefit claim is far more profound than that. It's not just a house that can be rebuilt. You can't rebuild a human life. So this was something that was a big deal for me. We also had a panel of executives, key personnel from life insurance companies, several different life insurance carriers, and they talk to us about a broad range of topics. Those sessions are not recorded because the idea is that they can speak freely and let us know some of the inner workings of the industry without having to put on their public marketing face. The kinds of things we got out of that were what forces a company to demutualize, no longer be a mutual company and instead be a stock company. What kind of roles are AI going to play in underwriting, in policy service, etc.? The panel was quite long and went into all kinds of topics. Again, it's not really something I'm at liberty to share, but I'd say just the access to a panel like that is worth the price of admission. If you're a practitioner, if you're thinking about becoming a practitioner, certainly if you're a client, let's talk a little bit more about some of those specific things that were covered. Really, really interesting stuff. And yeah, I took a lot of notes just in that panel for sure. Here's something that comes up every year, but it's always worth repeating. Banking is a process, not a product. That's a Nelson Nash ism. Banking is. It's another thing that Nelson would say. Banking is. Money lives in a place. Capital is accumulated in a place. There are certain relationships in an economic sense that are just always there. What we're talking about is a way that you can take some of the responsibilities from the banker and control those yourself. We call it taking control of the banking function in your life. If you can control a lot of the aspects of your financial life that the bank has historically controlled, what are the impacts of that? To a large extent, that's what Nelson's book is about. If you haven't read Becoming Your Own Banker, read it. That's what it's about. And it might sound like some trite marketing ploy, but I mean, very, very beginning of Nelson's book states that Becoming Your Own Banker is not a marketing tool for life insurance agents. It's a book that describes the features of whole life insurance contracts, but it's not an invitation to do business with Nelson Nash. It's an invitation to learn and take responsibility. That's why step 1 in my book of my 5-step process for financial freedom is take responsibility. You need to understand these things. You do business with me, great. You do business with my team, great. You do business with somebody else, great. That's not the point. The point is that you take responsibility for understanding these things. And so again, it's not here to sell policies. It's here to spread education. We're trying to build the 10%. That's the Nelson Nash Institute's mission. The 10%, at least 10% of the population, understanding and utilizing IBC, regardless of who their agent is. There's a lot more I could say about my time at the 2024 Think Tank, but I think my last point here is something that gets brought up every year. It's the idea that a lot of people in the life insurance industry, in the financial industry, know a couple of things about how whole life insurance contracts work, but they haven't really studied it. They haven't really learned how powerful a tool it is. And so, in their minds, often IUL, VUL, some of these other products are more or less just as good. Hey, it gets more growth because it taps into the stock market. Very, very surface level understanding. It's very marketable, but it's not correct. So we always are returning to first principles, understanding the core dynamics, the core contract features, the things that make whole life, and especially mutually owned whole life insurance companies. What makes them mutual? Why is that powerful? How do their contracts work? Those things are profoundly impactful. And so when you see these people out there who really only know the basics and then they just kind of run with it, you get into some weird territory. You get into some things that are just quite simply not true, but they look like they might be true on YouTube or TikTok or any other social media platform. I guess my biggest takeaway is just to focus on fundamentals, do your due diligence, work with a practitioner, and get the real story. Make sure that you ask every question you can come up with before you sign on the dotted line. This is a big decision. It's not something you want to cancel. after 1 or 2 years, right? It's a long term move. And I want people to have a good experience with their whole life insurance policies. I want them to use whole life and not use some of these other more modern life insurance product variants that just quite frankly don't do what you think that they do. I want you to always have your access to capital expanding. I want your family to be on a better financial footing 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. I don't want you to have to move backwards financially, especially later in life. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped. If you'd like to learn more about these topics, a great place to start is my book, Between the Lies: How to Reclaim Your Future from the Banks and Wall Street. You can find a link to that below in the description box. Or if you'd like to learn more here on YouTube before jumping into the book, check out the recommended video off to the side. I think it's going to be just the thing to increase your understanding. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.